All right, so you've opened your bag of parts and you counted everything out, maybe done a little bit of solder practice as well. And now it's time. We're going to start with the LCD display. It's a little bit easier to solder than the baseboard, so we'll start by doing this, getting our confidence level up a bit, and then we'll move on to the baseboard. So this is what we're going to look. This is what we're looking for when we're done. Right. So here's our circuit board. It's usually, it comes from the fab, cleaned off, ready to go. No edges, so you don't have to worry about preparing it unless you get it from Osh Park, in which case you'll need to remove any mouse teeth that are around the edge. So we got our soldering iron now heated up here. Let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull out our resistors. We're going to start basically from the bottom and work our way up the larger components as we go. So that way it's easy to let them rest on there and they don't fall out while we're trying to solder them. So yeah, let me get this tool over here. All right, so you see as far as the resistors go, you're just going to take them and we're just going to bend the legs over like that and form these nice little things. You're not supposed to do that, but it works out really well and it fits just in the spot. Just slide them on down like that. There we go. Then we'll clip the leads on the excess off. Beep. Especially me. All right, so we just take our and this is R12. It's another 220 ohm resistor. It's not marked on the PCB. There wasn't just not enough room by it apparently for it to be marked properly. So you just go by the values rather than any of the R markings. Just kind of match your values to the slot we're going into. Kind of going a little slow here, but we'll kind of pick up speed as we go along. So let's go to the next one. We have 1K. Remember to do everything in front of the camera. It's kind of difficult, especially because guys are upside down and backwards in my monitor, so very much confuses my brain. It's also nice because my mic is down on my chest here, and I'm spending a lot of time with my chin buried in my chest, so I'm sure it makes me sound like a large fat person. So, all right, so this is 1.2K. Doing it again. And see, I have the blue painter's tape on the side here to remind me to keep everything in frame. It doesn't appear to be working so well so far. So y'all can see what's going on. Does it stay in focus while I solder or not? Not too bad, I guess. I'll probably do some sort of general soldering video. This is 1.8K. General soldering video to sort of talk about some tips and techniques, but I kind of go over things. I mean, otherwise it's going to be pretty boring. Just hearing the sound of the soldering iron clanking. Using old Radio Shack solder, 60-40, I think 60% tin, 40% lead. Soldering at 330 degrees Celsius. Next is 3.9K resistor. I wish I had some fun number facts. Did you know 3,900 is the largest non-prime resistor in the R12 series? No, that's not true. Oh, what else we got? 8.2K here. The thing I have to remember is to not hum to myself while I work on this, because I kind of forget about that. You don't have to go on each one clipping the leads every time, but there we go. That's all our resistors that we need. Also, start with our next set. The next thing is we're going to use one of these little capacitors, multi-layer ceramic capacitor. Just going to go ahead and drop that in here. They're not polarized, so it doesn't matter which direction you put them in as long as you put it on the right side of the board. And this is one you'll see, one of the pads is like a little plus coming out of it here. I don't know if I'll be able to show you. Let's see. Look at, see how one of them's got like a plus coming out of it that goes into the board around it. That's a connection to the ground plane. And what that does, kind of gives it a good solid connection, but the bad part is it also likes to draw heat away from the soldering iron. So if you're going to solder something that's got one plus leg that's got little pluses on it and one that does not, it's easier to solder the one that doesn't have the pluses first, which will hold the component in place. And then you can go to this one, which will usually take a little bit more heat, a little bit more time for the solder to flow into. Just make sure that you get it in there. It's a little bit much, but it's okay. Luckily, we're not sending anybody to the moon with this. All right, so that's easy. Next, we're going to move on to the shift resistor that drives the LCD. The legs are too spread out to begin with to fit in there. They just won't fit in. So what we're going to have to do is take it and you just hold it, and you hold it like this, and just push it against the table a little bit to bend those legs in. Not sure why they make every integrated circuit like this. The old ICs must be something that has to do with how they manufacture the boards. It's easier for the machine to pick it up or something. And then of course you just got to struggle to get it into holes. It's always got to be one. Doesn't want to go in the hole. Yeah. And it's important to notice that there's this key mark here, so it's got the little U on it to match it up with the U mark that's down below there that indicates which way the chip is supposed to go. We kind of play a little tricks with this register. We drive it with the SPI bus, which makes it a little bit easier to drive. And we're kind of using it just as an I/O expander. To make sure that this is seated properly, notice I do like one pin and then the opposite pin there. Then I check it out to make sure it's seated properly. And to make sure it is seated properly, I hold it with my finger on the backside and push on it, and then heat this leg up until the solder flows again. And then if it's too far away from the board, it'll basically push it back up into it. And then we do this other leg too down here. All right, and then now we know that it's perfectly flush with the board. You don't have to worry about these other legs now. So now we'll just go along, just add a little bit of solder to each one. And you'll see this one right here is another one of those plus ones. Takes a little bit more heat to get that solder to flow on that one. So yeah, we're using this shift register to turn the SPI bus plus 2 extra pins into 6 outputs. It saves a lot of I/O pins on the Arduino, or the ATmega, I guess it is. And it also gives us a couple extra pins with which we use these LCDs, or LEDs. All right, what's next? Next we're going to need these BS170 small signal MOSFET. And they come with all the pins in a row, all lined up like that. But our boards have them sort of staggered. You'll see it in this footprint here. And we have bended them out of the way. So what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll use our fingernail to kind of pull out that bottom pin, or the middle pin, and back it out a little bit. So it kind of sticks out like that. And I'll take this pair of pliers, see if I can do it on camera, and just kind of grab it, and then just go whoop, and kind of bend it around. Didn't do such a good job on that, because I usually hold it closer to myself. Don't go with too much force, because it is easy to snap the leg off. Done a few times. It doesn't really matter if it sticks up that much, because it's just going to be below the board. Alright, we'll just solder these. Again, another one with a ground connection, so we'll do that one last. And again with this, I kind of put it in place there, and then just sort of hold it with my finger and try to make sure it's straight by heating it up again. And just making it straight up and down. The LCD can kind of run into this just because it's a little close here. So if this piece is bent towards the pin header, you could run into a problem with it hitting the LCD and the LCD not fitting. Should be a pain in the butt to fix later. So it's easier to fix it while you've got one pin there soldered. Make sure it's straight, and then you're good to go. And we can just clip these leads. Alright, next we'll go to contrast potentiometer. This is the gotcha that gets everybody at the end of their build. They're like, oh, why is my LCD not working? The heater meter seems to be working, but nothing on the display. And that's because this needs to be adjusted once the firmware is flashed. So you just kind of like stick it on bend the pins in a little bit just so it gives it a little bit less spacing there. Makes it a little tighter, and then just lay it on top of that pad down there. And we'll just heat this up. Flip it over, and the other two legs should be pretty close to where they need to be down there. This one is a ground pin, so we'll do that one last again. Notice it took a little bit more heat there. Alright, and then that's good to go. It's nice and out of the way. Alright, so pretty much we're kind of getting done here. Oops. You know what? I think in the instructions I said to do this first. We need to put pin header into these this male pin header holes. Not on the top, on the bottom. You'll see that anywhere the pin header is supposed to be, it's got these white marks around it that say that the pin header goes on this side. And then this side, you notice, doesn't have any white marks, but it has all the labels. But the more important part is the surround that's here that shows that that's where it is. So we need 5 pins. So we're going to count off 5 pins off this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then just hold it with your needle nose pliers and just bend it down and snap it. You should get a clean break that leaves you with just 5 pins. So we'll stick these down in here. Oh, this is where it gets fun. Oh, hold it and just let it sit down on there. We're going to hit any one of these pins is fine. I'll do the 5-volt one. And now that we've got the 1 pin in, we want to make sure that this is perfectly straight up and down. We're pretty close there, but just going to go hold it with my thumb. Don't hold the pin that you're heating up because you will burn your finger really fast. But hold the other pins and just heat this solder up. Just give it a little tweak to get it right perfectly up and down. Hard to tell, but it is. Take my word for it. Alright, let's go ahead and solder the rest of these pins. And then we'll have to do the other side as well. So we just need another 5 pins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I have to count. I can't just use my eyeballs because apparently I have terrible eyes that get lost along the way. So just sit it on top like that. Hit this little solder. And we'll look to make sure that that's straight up and down. I mean, I nailed that one, so I don't have to make any adjustments. Just solder the rest of these. All right, so now we're done with this part. I'm going to put this over here to the side. We have our LCD module. LCD has 16 pins on both sides, kind of unique to the New Haven display brand. But we use the bottom ones. The bottom ones are these here. You can kind of go by this thing. So here's our bottom pins. And if you look at it from the back, it's going to be these pins down the bottom again. So we're going to count off now 16 of these pins. There's an easier way to do that. I'm just going to drop this in here. There we go. Grab it by the 16th pin and snap it off. And there we go. So that's the right number. So we're going to take the longer side and the shorter side to these. We're working from the top of the LCD. This is the bottom is going to be the part that's facing you while you're soldering, and just drop the long end down so the short end sticks up and the long end goes down. It's not terribly important to do that, but it does make things a little easier. And now I'm going to turn this around because kind of like hang it off the side here so that the pins don't contact the table. That's where it's nice to have something that has a little bit of height to it. Oops, actually, we need to go this way around. Right. That. Oops, you can't see a thing. Let's see, what can I stick under here? Sure, that works. Hopefully this isn't too confusing. Just soldering to the top one. We're only going to do, again, one pin on each side. Alright, I'm going to check it to make sure that it's straight up and down. If it's not straight up and down, you just heat it up a little bit and give it a little torque. But again, it looks perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead now. Now that they're kind of tacked in place, I don't have to worry about putting anything underneath it. This is really difficult. Doesn't help that my desk is also covered with tons of video equipment and lights and whatnot. All right, I don't have to solder all 16 pins. We only use the outer 6 on each side. Save you a little bit of time. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6. So there'll be 4 left in the middle. I don't have to worry about that. Don't get too carried away with overheating it, because you can actually melt the plastic on the other side, and the pins will start dropping through, which makes things really difficult to assemble later. So we've got our LCD on there. So now we're going to mate these two together. The LCD is actually going to go underneath the button board. So the button board, this is the top that's facing out of the heater meter. The back of the board faces down inside. So we're just going to take this and we're going to, I'll get through the little holes there. Bring it up from the bottom, like so. So you'll see that we have our button board here, and then it goes up to the LCD. And what we'll do is we'll just set this down like this and kind of hit this a little bit. Get one of those pins. Oh, my hand is making it focus weird. All right. Again, another good chance to straighten things out before it gets too out of hand. Just solder 2 sides. Got a little bit of a bend to it, so I'm going to just go ahead and kind of heat this up and I just give it a little bit of torque to it. And there we go. All right, so now it's perfect. So now I'll just finish up soldering the rest of these. Let's see if I can turn it around so you can see. See if I can solder from the other side. Not going so well. And you can see that here that only the 6 pins on each half of the connector are labeled. Oh man, that's really making a mess. Let's go back to the normal way. Sorry, folks. So yeah, you just need to solder the labeled pins. The blank ones you don't have to worry about. Again, you're just trying to touch the solder to the pad itself, not to the soldering iron. It's a little bit difficult in this situation because it's a little tight in there. All right, so there you go. CD's now firmly affixed. And the buttons. Not too many. Nice to stick together. So we got 9 minutes left to finish this because my camera will only record 30 minutes at a time. So just take these, and now we're working on the other side of the board. Important to notice the buttons. You know, again with the white silk screen, always the parts go on the side that their silk screen is. And just sort of slide into place and get a pretty good, hold themselves in there pretty well too. Oops. Except for this one, doesn't want to go in. There you go. Flip it on over. I'm just going to hit pin on each of these on each side. So basically only doing half the pins at a time. Because we're going to flip it over and make sure that they're properly touching, seated against the circuit board. And if you do two on the same side, it's really difficult to sort of adjust it. So I'll just do one on each side. It's fun because as you try to solder, the buttons press in. You kind of chase them a little bit. Now we're just going to look at these the buttons here to see if there's any gap between the two. If there's any gap, you'll just hold it down and then put the soldering iron to it for a second. You know, just to hear it snap into place. Usually, when you do this, if it's not in the right place, but these are all pretty good. I'll check it from both angles. You know, this side angle here as well. Make sure that they're not sticking up. All right, and then we'll go through and we'll finish just our other pins here. Hard to get to there, but we can do it. All right, and that's the way it goes. All right, so we're almost done. Now the last step you're going to want to do is put your LEDs in, and the LEDs are three colors: yellow, green, and red. But you don't want to do these until you've got your case that you're going to put them in, because if you just take them and you put them in here, like this is the red one, I'll just say we'll drop it in just for display purposes. If I just drop it in like that and then solder it in, you notice that it's real close to the board there, and it's not going to reach all the way to the case until it's shine out. So they actually need to be raised up a little bit. You know, just stick up a little bit like that. Hands in the way. So yeah, they'll just stick up a little bit like that. But and the only way you know how much you need to let it stick up is to get yourself a case. Easiest way to do this is you just take them and load them all up at once. Take this in, and there's a longer lead on these. The longer lead is the positive one. So just when these are marked with the positive thing, so you just stick the longer lead in the positive hole and then drop it on in. And the green one. The not so easy way to remember which order they go in is that they are in reverse stoplight order. I somehow managed to put them green, yellow, red in the first design, and ever since then it's too late to change. So it's just reverse stoplight, and then you just drop your piece in here and then load them up into the holes and solder them. You'll notice that when you do this, the buttons stick out the other side. So you'll need to put something underneath it so that it floats above the ground, like put a tool under each side. Otherwise, you'll push the buttons down and you'll see how it kind of lifts up the whole board there, which will then leave you with the incorrect height. Because I do a lot of these, I actually have a special jig I made And it's like this. It's just sort of a hollow bottom that you can just sort of load this thing up into. Oops. And then you point the LED. And then there's also has no sides on it as well, which makes it easy to solder in from the side without melting a perfectly good case. All right, so we're good to go there. Kind of give these like a little push to make sure they're fully seated in. Wonderful. And then just do one leg. I'm always doing one leg and then checking it to make sure it's right. Man. All right. And look from the side and make sure that they're all, you know, nice and, it's really hard to get, yeah, all nice and level there. One didn't pop out while you were trying to get the solder to it. And then solder the ground side. The ground side here is for some reason really tough to get solder just flow onto. So you just kind of heat it up, touch it, and there it goes. Heat it up and touch, not yet. And there it goes. I want to make sure that that solder flows down into the hole, not just sticks to the lead or something. I'm just going to kind of touch these up a little bit more. That's fine. All right. And we'll clip off little bits there. I always try to hang on to these leads because when you pop them off, they go everywhere. I can pop it out onto my jig. And that is it. That is one finished HeaterMeter LCD and button board. It's ready to go. All ready to line up into the board. There you go, 27 minutes.